Now you can actually eat these flowers?
Yes, they're all edible. We have cornflowers, snapdragons, nasturtiums, and Deborah, why don't you try a taste of this begonia?
Okay. Mmm, that's good. Kind of lemony.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Deborah Boland. Today on Backyard Pleasures, we're dining al fresco. We've got some great ideas for entertaining outdoors in the French country style. We'll also take you on a tour of a fairy-filled backyard that's full of childhood memories. And of course, we'll have our regular gardening tip. If your garden has become just a little bit too serious, then you might want to draw some inspiration from this backyard. It's the quintessential Victorian-style garden full of fun and whimsy created by Ruth Butler and her husband, Jim. Hi, Ruth.
Hi, Deborah.
I am so excited to be in this garden. Not only is this a pretty garden with all these magical things to discover, but I understand it holds a lot of memories for you.
Yes, it does, Deborah. This is based on my childhood, when as a little girl I would play with the fairies at the bottom of my garden. So to take me back to my childhood and to take me back to England, where I was obviously from, I wanted to have fairies in my garden. So it's whimsical, and you'll see that as we go around the garden.
Is this what they call a cottage-style garden?
Yes, it is. I was raised in the south of England in the county of Surrey, where all around us we would have cottage gardens. And this is what we have here.
And it seems like the home reflects the garden. It's a historical home, I understand?
Yes, yes. It was built around 1840. It was originally owned by a shipbuilder, and I hope he approves of what we have done here, taking the design and the colors through to the garden.
Now, one of the things that helps you transport yourself back into time are some of these garden elements, like this reflecting pool.
In the time when I really want to sit and read and have quiet moment, I can sit and just listen to that lovely sound.
Yes. Now let's take a look at some of these little Victorian knickknacks you've got all over. They do hold special memories.
Yes.
Tell me about that anchor, for example.
That anchor belonged to my husband's father, and Jim remembers using it as a little boy. So I just thought, well, it's right to be here where we can remember his father.
And I see this little rock here. It looks like a heart.
Well, that heart and the two little name tags there were given to us in Sweden by a wedding couple, and they graciously gave us those, and we remember them, we reflect upon them.
So a very personal garden. What else have you got in here?
Well, tucked underneath that little daylily, you'll find a little fairy down there.
I see her,
down there?
yes, yes.
Okay.
And how many fairies do you have in the garden?
I must have in excess of 18.
Now, probably one of the challenges here was getting depth, because it is a small yard.
Yes, it was, Deborah. We managed to get the depth and spaciousness from the pathways that you see that we're walking on right now.
Now, why stone instead of maybe
Well,
pavement?
because it has a texture and a crunchiness as we're walking, which is interesting.
Adds a nice sound to the garden.
And one of the things that my husband and I like to do in the evening is just get a little refreshment and wind down, walk through the paths, and just veg out. The stress is gone.
The garden is perfect for that.
Yes, it is.
Now, you've got these beautiful arbors, which really give the backyard a nostalgic feel. Are they just there to look good, or is there really a purpose?
Well, Jim made these, and this is really what we use to divide the garden up into like small rooms.
I see, yeah.
So, for instance, we had just been by the reflecting pool, and there's an arbor over there where you actually can sit, and each one is a little different.
Well, he's really done a good job of them.
Yeah, I'm very proud.
Now, we've kind of touched on the flowers a little bit, but we've got to go into more detail, because I understand you've got 300 varieties of plants here?
Yes, and most of them, the majority are perennials.
Lovely, and I see you've got lots of roses.
A lot of roses. We have them on the arbours, as well as the clematis, and there's an akebia plant there, which is a sort of like a chocolate brown coloured plant. It's very interesting because you get different times of the year, you get different textures, different colours. And then we have lavenders because we need some scents.
Must be a very fragrant garden.
Yes, it is, yes.
And you attract a lot of birds and bees, I guess.
Yes, and the birds particularly like that reflecting pool because it's shallow enough that they can go and splash around, and they really enjoy it. So a lot of, as you say, birds, bees, ladybirds, hummingbirds.
Oh, it's just a gardener's garden, really spectacular. Now, we've come to a whole other area of the yard, and this, I mean, it's really different. I've never seen this anywhere else. Ruth, this is such a fun area. This chess set really gives the backyard kind of an Alice in Wonderland feel. How did you ever come up with the idea?
Well, I wanted a patio, and Michael Spillane, our garden designer, said to Jim, well, are you into any kind of sports? And that's when Jim said, well, I play chess. So there was the idea. We matched the idea of a patio and a chess set, and this is what we came up with.
So original. And I noticed that this fun and games theme is kind of carried on throughout the yard. You've got some marbles over there.
Yes, the little fairy looks after the little bowl of marbles so that children or adults can certainly play marbles here. And also at the side, we have hopscotch.
I noticed that. Kids would just have a ball in this backyard. Now, what about that headboard? What's the story behind that?
Oh, the headboard. Found that behind the garage. And as it was here when we arrived, and I'm sure it has a history because it looked very old when we got it, I thought it belongs here. So we put it into the garden as a freeform structure.
Real conversation piece. And you've got this super little seating area. I guess people can sit and watch if you have tournaments and so forth.
Yes, because it's always shady. And you'll also notice there that there are little fairies that I put, you have to sort of look for them.
See that.
And at the base of the lamppost, there's a little dog, and it's got a little fairy watching.
So sweet. And that lamppost, that looks rather different. Did that come from someplace special?
That came from Poland. It is an antique, and it sheds a beautiful light, particularly on the chessboard at night, and you get reflections. It's very interesting, very magical.
And the last magical thing about this area has to be this fairy, which is my favorite.
Did you notice the fairy dust?
Yes, I do. She's just spectacular. Now I can hear the sound of water over there luring me away, so let's go take a look. I've seen a lot of water features on my tours, but I've never seen anything like this. Is this a grotto?
Yes, it is a grotto, Deborah. And this is very much from my past, and it's a specialty of Michael Spillane. And it is a reminder of the caves that you get in Cornwall. There are a lot of ferns growing. There's always that trickling sound of water when you're eating. And we ended up dedicating this to a very darling aunt of ours who passed away, and she collects pugs. So you'll notice that there is a pug.
I was wondering about that little fella. And I see more fairies. That's a cute little fairy tea party they're having down there.
Well, it's time of day, you know.
Yeah, lovely place to sit and have a cup of tea.
Yes.
And you've got some beautiful flowers.
Yes. Here we have a red hot poker, which is a most unusual plant, which complements the lily.
And the furniture you've chosen complements the garden so well.
Thank you, Deborah. We try to keep the theme of the flowers going. Jim and I do quite a lot of entertaining, so this is a nice area for us to have friends over. We also have little benches around, which is the scroll work, which is very romantic.
And I see this is a very practical garden. You've got some herbs over here.
Yes, it's very convenient when I'm cooking. I just come out with my scissors and snip away.
And what have you got? You've got some tomatoes, and I see some basil.
Yes, and in the herbs I also have the parsley, rosemary, and some other little items scattered around. Makes it complete.
Another charming aspect is the way the garden wraps right around to the front of the house.
Well, of course, we have to use every available space because it is so small.
And I see it's environmentally friendly.
Yes, in the rain barrel, I collect the rains so that I can top up for watering.
And you compost?
Yes, we do, all the yard waste.
Beautiful. Now, it seems like a garden that's never really quite complete.
You're right, Deborah, because I will always be adding some plants here. And because one other feature that Jim and I are thinking about is adding an old-fashioned English telephone booth.
Really?
Yes, to use as a greenhouse.
Wouldn't that be a great idea? Well, thanks so much, Ruth, for showing us around this garden from the heart.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you, Deborah.
If you'd like to create your own memory garden, try these things. Adopt the Victorian cottage style, which has a relaxed, casual, and childlike feel. Add personal memorabilia, such as fairies, to the garden to tell a story. And incorporate structures and pathways that lead you from one memory to another.